Hey, welcome to Planted in the Word. I'm Candace, and it's getting better. It's starting to look like I know what I'm doing, which is great. I hope it feels a little more homey. You got a plant as you come by. Last time we talked, we were discussing biblical history, and today we're going to do part 3. Last time in part 2, we left off with the Vulgate. And the Vulgate was the Latin translation of the Bible paid for by the Catholic Church in 382. And the reason we stopped there was because really nothing happened for about 1,000 years after that. The Bible was in Latin, church services were in Latin, scripture reading was in Latin, and that lasted until 320. So you could go to church and language had evolved enough that people really weren't speaking Latin, and they would go to services, but they didn't understand what was being said. And in 1320, John Wycliffe comes along and he feels that everybody ought to be able to understand the scripture for themselves and be able to read it in a language that they actually know. So he sets about to translate the Bible into Middle English. And this was considered very heretical, but nothing happened to him. And so the Bible went from the Vulgate in Latin to Middle English, and there it stayed for about 100 years until William Tyndale was born. And Tyndale was born in 1494. And William Tyndale was really inspired by Martin Luther, and he wanted to translate the Bible from Middle English into modern English. But in order to do that, he had to move out of England, and he moved to Germany, where he completed that process, and he did publish his Bible. But he had to go on the run because the church was after him. He had committed a great heresy. He was eventually arrested in Antwerp, and he was taken back to London, where he was tried and convicted of heresy and sentenced to burning at the stake. They commuted that sentence, and they actually ended up trying to kill him twice. They garroted him at the stake and then went ahead and burned his body. And that happened in 1536. So he really paid for his modern English translation of the Bible with his life. Now you will recognize both the names of Wycliffe and Tyndale because they are still in use today. We have Wycliffe Bible translators and we have Tyndale House Publishing, both who are named in honor of those two men and the sacrifices that they made. So what ends up happening after that? Well, it was already out, this modern English translation of the Bible, and there really isn't anything that could stop it at that point. And so now we have Henry VIII. And in 1538, Henry VIII has already broken with the Catholic Church. And though he was against Tyndale and his heresy of translating the Bible into modern English, he quickly decides that actually it's to his advantage as he's trying to establish the Church of Church of England and break away from the Catholic Church. So he goes ahead and pays for another translation of the Bible, and this was done in 1549, and this was called the Great Bible. Now after that, we have the Calvinists and the Protestants wanting to do their own translation. So in 1557 to 1560, they go ahead and translate the Bible into, again, English. And this Bible was a little bit different in that it was called the Geneva Bible, and it was really for every man. It had commentaries in the margins, and that was really the first time that had happened. That meant even the uneducated could read the Bible and would have some understanding and some things explained to them so that they could really grasp what was going on. To this, the Bible wars continued, and the Archbishop of Canterbury, he commissioned his own Bible to be translated, and it was called the Bishop's Bible, and it was finished in 1591. But it was never as popular as the Geneva Bible, it was really intended for the people. And then we have 1603. Very shortly after that, King James ascends to the throne. Now, the Puritans really wanted a huge reformation from King James, but he really felt that the Puritans were against the monarchy. So when it was suggested that maybe in order to help establish himself, he should have a translation of the Bible himself, he jumped at the chance, and in 1604, he commissioned the King James Bible to be translated. Now, there's a great story that goes on behind that. It's said that he was a little reluctant to go ahead and pay for this commissioning. So when they approached him, the method that they used was that they told him, hey, you know, there's a lot of Jameses in the Bible. Of course, we know that in ancient Hebrew, there is no J letter. There really weren't Jameses, there were Jacobs, which really in ancient Hebrew were Yaakov. So there were a lot of Yaakovs in the Bible. However, from Hebrew to Greek, from Greek to Latin, from Latin to English, you have the beginning of the J letter. And so transliteration has given us this James word, but there really weren't any Jameses in the Bible. In fact, it would be fair to note that your book of James, the brother of Jesus and the disciple, really should be called Yaakov, or at the least Jacob's in our Bible. But as an ode to James, those books have stayed James. So we've gotten to 1604, and at that point, those are the manuscripts that are really used even today for our modern translations. But the point I did this whole series is because I wanted you to notice all through the kingdoms, all through the people, the ups and the downs, the number of scriptures, and the lives that have been lost just so that you could hold in your hand the Bible that you have today. We really owe a lot to the people that have come before us. Thank you so much for joining me. Next time, I'm hoping to do a video on what is the significance of translations? Why do we have so many? What's the right one? What should I be reading in? So we'll address those issues as we come together next time. Hope to see you then. Have a good day.